Yo, what's up, everybody? How's it going? And welcome back to another deck interview. Today we've got Quips&Guac with us, who is going to introduce us to his favorite commander deck.
Hello, everyone. I'm Quips&Guac. I'm the brains behind the Quips&Guac YouTube channel, where I make weird and wacky commander decks, usually based on viewer suggestions. A lot of times it's like a fever dream of commander, usually lower brackets, just more focused on theme and having a lot of fun over being super functional. And today, my favorite deck is Baloth Baratil Entertainer with the Noble Heritage background. This is actually the first deck I ever built. I've upgraded it and made it a lot more functional than it was in the olden days. But I was immediately drawn to Goad as an effect, as a deck style. And Baloth and Noble Heritage I thought was the most fun for me and my play group, because I just got into Magic. I was like, okay, some decision making, some like politics or whatever. I don't really know what that means yet. I'm still super new to the game. But I like the idea of, I don't know how to fight people, so I'm just gonna have them fight each other. And that's sort of where this deck came around. So yeah, it is great. I can read off Baloth and Noble
go
Heritage.
ahead. I mean, we should probably tell the people what Baloth does. He's a very unique card, I think, because he handles Goad in a bit of a distinct way from how we usually see it.
Yeah, so Baloth Baratil Entertainer, he's 5 mana, so he's a bit expensive. And in my early commander days, I was like, oh, that's not that bad. I can get that out pretty consistently. Little did I know that like that is actually quite expensive for a commander. But it's 5 mana for a 2/5 elf shaman. Creatures your opponents control with power less than Baloth's are goaded. So this is just like a static effect. As long as Baloth is on the battlefield, any creature your opponents play out or have, even if they got haste or whatever, they have to check and see if they meet the I call them like they get drafted. They have to go and fight in combat. Because Baloth is telling them to go and fight. So right off the bat, he's anything with power 1. So all those 1/1 tokens your opponents make, they now have to actually get used immediately. And then he's got a nice little effect there. This comes up very infrequently, in my opinion, but whenever a goaded attacking or blocking creature dies, you create a treasure token. So this does allow him to get a little bit more mana eventually with the goaded attacking and stuff, because he's expensive, and a lot of the deck is, if he gets removed, you have to recast him, because he is kind of the main engine of the deck, which is why it is fun to power him up with his background, Noble Heritage. So this is, I think, one of the most cool backgrounds in the entire like slot of backgrounds, because when this creature enters the battlefield and at the beginning of your upkeep, each player may put 2+1 counters on a creature they control, and then for each opponent who does, I gain protection from them until my next turn. So it's basically sort of like an arms race, where I'm obviously always putting the Noble Heritage on Baloth. So now it goes from anything with power 1 to anything with power 3 or less has to fight, and so on. It's now 5, 7. He gets stronger and stronger. And your opponents usually have a creature they really want to keep away from combat. So this is usually their commander or a big value piece that they will then put those counters on, because they don't want to have it go to combat against your opponents and lose it, most likely. And so that means I'm protected from them. So although they're not goaded, for all intents and purposes, they can't do anything to me. Their stuff is goaded by me, and I'm protected from them. So no matter what, I'm still coming out on top, which is why I think it's such a fun thing, because at a certain point, your opponents will be like, all right, we want to start hitting him. Let's turn off that Noble Heritage now. Let's like stop taking the deal. And it feels a lot of, my favorite part is like the vizier, the dark, like, oh, you should take the deal. Why wouldn't you? You know what I'm saying? So it's just such a cool card.
So you're a very political player then?
I think so, yeah. I would say that what's fun for me is like the idea of making choices when it's not your turn kind of thing. Because a lot of time, some players and like turns will be like, all right, I'm not doing anything for like 30 minutes or whatever, a period of time where it goes from my opponent to my next opponent to my next opponent. I don't have a lot of I'm not getting to play. It's sort of like that Dungeons and Dragons thing where like someone's taking a really long turn and you don't get to play as much. At least with Noble Heritage and with some of these other effects in the deck, I've got some like voting cards and stuff like that. You're always sort of need to be paying attention to what's going on in like the board state. And you always get to have like a moment where like, I'm like, oh, it's not my turn, but I'm still making decisions. I still have to think a little bit. I think I like that aspect of politics.
That's kind of interesting. Like, I feel like you could use the same argument of what you just described to like build this really controlling mono blue counterspell pile. And
No.
no, but you don't like that. You wouldn't go that way.
No, I don't think so. I think that like my idea is that this makes you play the game. Like it's like battle cruiser style Magic is very like popular, where it's like everyone builds up their board state, but until everyone is like super like confident in their attacks, they won't attack. They'll just have like I'll hold up blockers. I'll hold up blockers. I'll hold up blockers. But if no one's attacking, those blockers aren't doing anything. You're not holding up anything. And so I think this is like, all right, we're going to play the game. We're going to do Magic. You're going to have to make choices, put the counters on them. Don't take the counters. You're going to have to fight anyway. Or if you do, I'm protected from you or whatever. And I think that means, like, for me, the idea is Bailoff makes people fight, which is control. I've heard like Goad is a control effect. I would disagree because it's fun. Control in my head is like slowing things down. You know what I'm saying? Like control is like to kind of stacks things out, and the counterspell pile is like no one playing the game except for me, as opposed to like this, at least everyone's swinging at each other. Life totals are getting lower. It's more cinematic, or people are like making deals to team up against me. I don't care. That's like the fun part of it for me. So that's why I kind of like the
that's
vibe.
kind of a wild way to think about it, you know? But I mean, if it works for you. So do you like have a regular play group that you mostly play this against, or how do you play this deck? Where do you play it?
Yeah, so I have I've got like my dedicated like friend group of people that I started playing Magic with, and have been mainly. I was joking the other day that I'm probably like the least like I don't have any stories about like LGS play or anything like that. I really only have this like group of friends that I play Magic with, and maybe at like the events and stuff like that, or MagicCon or whatever. I may or may not play with other people, but I'm not going out of my way to go to like the LGS and play this deck or whatnot, because usually I'll just have this friend group. And so I bring out the Goad deck, as it's called by everybody, when maybe like the first deck of the it is, but it has, they say it with such like venom. They're like, oh, he's bringing out the Goad deck. You know what I'm saying? It's because I do get it. It is like it throws a wrench in everybody's plans for the most part, which is why people might be like, oh, everything, all my cool things, all my tokens, all my stuff, they now have to fight. But those games are like fast and fun, and so yeah, I pull it out maybe like every 1 or 2 game nights. So like it doesn't get pulled out a lot, mainly because I usually am experimenting with a new deck or trying something else, and just because we only get to play so many games per night. He doesn't come out all the time, but he is definitely like one of my favorites to bring out as like you know what, he's out of retirement, let's bring him out, and then immediately I will lose the game, but it is fun for the most part while he's out there.
No, I definitely get that. Like one of my favorite decks is 6, and the problem with that deck is just that it's so powerful that I rarely get to play it. I need a like really strong pod, and so I play it like, I don't know, maybe once a month, but I enjoy that game. That is the game that I'm looking forward to. So
it's just so nice to
Oh no, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah, it's just nice to like get you've got like the one thing where you're like, all right, I'm known for this. Like I'm notorious. I don't play it all the time, but when it comes out, it's got like a sort of it has its reputation of like, oh yeah, if he brings it out, we're in for one. You know what I'm saying? Same thing with like a Simic deck where you're like, all right, this is about to be not fun. You know, at least
so okay. What would you describe as not fun? Like you said that, right? Like, so you don't like control, you don't like Simic, like what? I feel like you are kind of like describing in a roundabout way a certain style of Commander that you don't like. And by like Commander, I mean the gameplay pattern, right? Like what is it? What is your ideal match of Commander?
Yeah. Well, to me, I think that like at the end of the day, I have like a very like gamified version of what I think Magic is, in the sense of like I built my entire channel and like, hey, build what is fun and like wacky and goofy. And that tends to not really mesh well with like super win focused players, I guess. Like to me, every game should be a 25% chance to win for each player, if that makes sense. Like skill and stuff is relatively equal all across the board. I think there are like strategies, I think like stacks and control, that I don't like because it makes me feel like I'm not having as much fun, or like I'm playing less Magic per Magic game because I'm getting countered. I'm getting all these like things where I have to play the Smothering Tax Tithe and all these other things, where it makes the experience less about like, me and the homies summoning creatures and fighting, punching each other in the face with them, versus now it's like, okay, we've got all these things that I'm locked out and stuff. I think Elk has like a deck where it's designed to like, you can't play any spells or anything like that.
We
and you have
talked
to
about that on this show.
Yeah, that's what I was, go watch that video. Go watch that video.
Yeah, I guess for context.
Exactly. But there's like a basically like you locks. I would never want to play with someone who's like, my entire game plan is I lock you out and then you draw your deck and then die because you can't play anything. That to me is like, okay, that's fun for one player, but I would want a deck that's fun for everybody to interact with. Like, oh, that is really cool that you're doing that. I've never seen that before. That's a very neat interaction. I feel like the needs of the many outweigh the needs of the few in that sort of sense.
For you, Commander's really like a collaborative effort. We're all here to like play the game together rather than against each other.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's very much, and I think that's where like the politics comes into play from this, because I've got a couple of cards in here. I'm trying to like pull up. Let me see if I could pull out any of them. Like what is it? Let me see. I think I have it in here. There's an enchantment. Maybe I took it out. Like Shiny Impetus or something like that, where I put it on an opponent and it could be good or bad for them. Where like now, or I think the better one would probably be Sound of Drums. I think this one's a banger.
Oh, that card is
deck.
Nasty.
I love it. I love Doctor Who. So this card is already like like I love this card just because it exists. But it basically does double damage to if the enchanted permanent would deal combat damage to a permanent or player, it deals double that damage, but it is goaded. So usually it's really fun to put this on somebody else's like commander or something like that, where now it's like, hey, you're like Voltron style commander. I just doubled its damage. You're welcome. But don't swing it at me because it's goaded. So you have to at least kill 2 other people. Or it's doing like double damage. I think I put it on. I had a buddy's not like a Hellkite Tyrant, but like a big dragon, big flying dragon or big angel or whatever, where suddenly you're like, okay, yeah, I'll give you double damage. I know this will bite me eventually if it's not removed, but I'm making it look like good removal target. So I'm winning if they remove it. Or if you use it against my opponents, I'm winning in that way. So there's no downsides and everyone's having fun because now your thing does bigger number. A bigger number is better.
Bigger number is more fun. Like you subscribe to the like Yu-Gi-Oh lifestyle of just
or big number, big fun. Exactly, and that's
good. I've had that particular spell put on a Primordial Hydra before, which was very fun.
My god, is that the one where it attacks? It doubles its counters
it doubles its counters in the upkeep is what it does. It's just like
oh my god,
that's like oh god.
Anything with anything with trample with this is gross. There's so many things. Yeah. Because I think that's just like, I want people to play more Magic per Magic game, if that makes sense, where it's like making game moves, doing things at fighting, combat, all the different, like, if you had a checklist of like, all right, what do you think makes a Magic game, right? And you're like, all right, I play land, I cast spells, I do this, I go to combat. And you're like, okay, I get like maybe 3 or 4 of those every game I get to play a big, cool spell, right?
Yeah.
At least this is like, all right, I'm going to combat way more than I normally would. I'm getting like more payoffs and more like funny moments where like now you have to block or now I have to like make strategic choices as opposed to like everyone's holding up blockers. Nobody's really doing anything brave or courageous. And this sort of forces them to.
So I take it that you also like you use these tools like something like the Sound of Drums in like a political sense, right? So you would talk to your opponents and figure out, okay, who's willing to make a deal with me for this or who's willing to cooperate and so on. And would you like that conversation, that's also part of Magic for you, I take it?
Yeah, I think the idea of like making deal or like talking with your opponents, like, all right, I've got this thing, who will I give it to? Or Sound of Drums is one of the specifics where sometimes I'm just like, all right, whoever's got the biggest thing, I'm going to give this to, regardless of like the consequences. Because for the most part, like sometimes they'll take the Noble Heritage deal, so it doesn't matter. I'm protected anyway. So even if it's just like between the 2 of us or whatnot, or like down to the wire, I'm protected, I'm safe against their scary things. Like a good example of like one of the cards I really love are like, I've got 3 sorceries in this deck and all 3 of them bangers. I love each of them. But I think probably the one that I've gotten the most mileage out of is Prisoner's Dilemma. This card I've got like 3 or 4 different stories about, but it's 5 mana. So each opponent secretly chooses Silence or Snitch. Then the choices are revealed. If each opponent chose Silence, Prisoner's Dilemma deals 4 damage to each of them. If each opponent chose Snitch, Prisoner's Dilemma deals 8 to them. Otherwise, so if one person does a snitch and the other does a silence, Prisoner's Dilemma deals 12 to each opponent who chose silence. And it has flashbacks, so you could do it twice, which is, oh my God, yes, please.
Yes.
This is already such a cool effect. But this like changes the game in such a fun way. I remember I had a game where I had Prisoner's Dilemma out, or I had an opponent down to like 1 life or something like that. I had 2 opponents and they were both super low. So one was at like 1 life and the other I was gonna like remove or like kill them. They had like so low life. So the idea was like, all right, no matter what happens, what they vote, like one of them should die, right? I had the one guy at 1 HP who was next after me, and then there was another guy who just went before me. But basically they ratted. So one of them, they both talked to each other and they like didn't talk, but they were like, all right, we both know what we're gonna do, obviously, right? And the obvious thing was I think they were both gonna choose silence. That was like what I thought. I'm like, oh, perfect. They both take 4 damage and they die. Perfect. But then one of them snitched. And so the one who chose silence died and the other one snitched. And so he was at 1 HP and then he killed me. And I was like, no, this is not, because I didn't realize that if you pick the other one, you don't take any damage. The other person just takes 12. So I was like, oh, okay, you both died. No. It was just a very like fun moment for me where this card is just such a cool, I mean, if you have damage doublers or anything like that, this thing just goes crazy.
I mean, from my experience playing it, like I have had this thing just like hit for 12 very, very frequently. Like oftentimes one person will snitch. It's the person's dilemma. You know, that's how it goes.
And it's such a cool,
So you said, right, you mostly play with your own play group, but I take it then that the whole bracket conversation isn't really like an active part of your experience.
Not really. We have like, my friends all know about the bracket system. Everyone I play with sort of knows about the bracket system. I think we don't like define our decks per bracket. It's more of that sort of notoriety. That's sort of like the reputation.
Yeah.
Like I have a buddy who's got a Dragon deck. I got a buddy who's got like a Ezio all swords big assassin deck with like smothering tides and propagandas and all the like horrible things where I'm like, all right, this is strong. It's got Bolus of Citadel. Like it's got the game changers in it, but we still play it.
I need to agree with you. I need to agree with you so much. I love that you put propaganda in the same category. Propaganda is some fucking bullshit. And I hate that people just play it so casually as if it's not turbo stacks.
It's mean. I can't say that I like hate it because I have it in a Master of Keys deck. But I think it came with the precon. But yeah, it's some of those like, so you hate to see it. You hate to see propaganda. That's like one of the worst because it's again, especially the Bailoff deck hates to see propaganda. So when he plays his propaganda and I've got like everyone swinging at each other, it sucks because there's like a rules interaction where like if you have to pay for it, you don't actually have to attack.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, no, this sucks. My buddy has an Angel deck who's got like the Angel of Tithes or whatever, which is very similar and like all those things where you have to pay to attack. I'm like, no, that's the bane of this deck. That counters this deck more than like removal does because I hate those effects. But yeah, game changer like bracket system is very much just like we kind of play it by ear of like, all right, we're going to play our more powerful decks or just play what's fun. And for the most part, I think our decks all sort of are able to do their thing. Like they may not win every game. Like someone has a super strong deck, they'll pull that out. And we know, okay, that deck is a lot more of the threat because it's he's got all the swords of blank and blank on his assassins. They're going crazy. Propaganda, Smothering Tide, Bolus of Citadel. Don't get me started. It's crazy. But you'll play against that deck and you're like, all right, we're all trying to do our thing and slowly sort of stop him from doing his stuff. And I think that makes for that fun multiplayer experience where like, all right, we clearly know someone's deck is crazy strong. And we've got our fun decks that we like to play. We've got our stronger ones, but maybe we want to play something else. It just allows for a little bit of like back and forth of like, we're not super mad about who wins. We're more like who got to do their thing. Everyone's deck got to do their really cool moment. I had a cool, like, I flashed back my entire deck with Past in Flames and I did a whole bunch of stuff and I got countered. Yeah, but it was cool. And that's sort of, I think it's very much like more of a narrative, just like people in my age, I think I'm like 24, 25. You'll never know which one, but like in the past, people would go to bars and hang out. This is sort of like that experience, but more like we're just playing Magic, hanging out and telling stories and laughing while we're playing our little cardboard. So brackets and stuff don't matter as much as opposed to like everybody collectively having a good time. There's still salt, obviously, about salty cards, but that's a different discussion.
Yeah, I mean, like, look, you can never stop me from being annoyed by your Smothering Tithe, but you're not playing a Smothering Tithe to not annoy me. Like, that's the point of it, right?
That's the fun. Is like, do you pay the 2 and you're... I had a game recently where someone had the Smothering Tithe, and I had a Treasure Nabber. So my buddy would pay for his Smothering Tithe with his Soul Ring, and I'm like, thank you, brother. I will now also pay for the Smothering Tithe with your Soul Ring. I eventually sacked his Soul Ring, but that was mean. But it doesn't matter. But it's that sort of fun moment where like you have more like interaction and more like all right, we can all agree not to pay this until everyone eventually starts to crumble and pay the Smothering Tithe, and everyone has fun with it.
So I know this doesn't really apply to your like regular gameplay experience, right? But let's say you bring this deck to a con and you're asked, what bracket is this deck? Well, what would you say? Just like so we have a bit of like understanding / context here.
Yeah, I would say, I think if we're going off of the new brackets sort of expectation system, I would say that I expect this to be like bracket 2. I think I don't really... I'm pretty sure I didn't put in any
no game
game changers. Yeah, no game changers. I also think that like the story behind this deck was that I originally proxied it for like $100 because I didn't know if I wanted to play Magic. So a lot of the original cards in this deck were all like just printed on printer paper, and I like put them behind lands and stuff because I didn't know if I even liked Magic.
You proxied it for $100?
So that was like the max. I was like, whatever the deck will be.
So you build a $100 deck and then you proxied that. Okay. All right.
Because I was like, because that would be like, oh, this is what I reasonably would pay to play a deck, but I don't want to pay it and have a bad time with the deck.
Yeah.
Since then, if you're looking at the deck list, it's a little bit more expensive now, just because I've added in some stuff that I've like pulled and that I've slowly like got my little grubby paws on, just from playing the game and stuff like that. But yeah, so that was the sort of idea, was that it was originally like a $100 proxy. I didn't want to play, wasn't too crazy, just like a bracket 2 type thing, because most of the time it's like, it's more thematic of like the politics and like the goading as opposed to like a serious win condition. I think the really only way to win is like Rogue's Passage. I think that's like my only real win condition for the most part.
That's fascinating that you pick out Rogue's Passage. So there is a sub-theme to the goading here then, isn't it?
Yeah, well, I feel bad because, not like practice what you preach, but like if you're going to, it's the same problem with like control decks where if you're going to play control, win the goddamn game. Like end this, please. Like don't waste my time.
I couldn't agree more. The worst thing you can do to me in a game is waste my time. I don't care if you win. That's great. Win. That's exactly. Please do that. Don't just keep me hostage. I'm leaving. Yeah. Like, I don't need this.
There's definitely like some very cursed people who want like, I want this deck to stall the game until people scoop. That's the win con, is everyone conceding.
The great thing is that won't take long.
Yeah, and that's the thing where you're like, yeah, you could. It's just very much like, and then you never get played against those people ever again because they know like, all right, you're evil. But yeah, so I think I eventually got to a point where I realized, okay, I'm getting second a lot because that's just the way the Goad deck kind of crumbles.
Yeah.
Where eventually you sort of fall apart at your, when it's just the last 2 1v1.
The normal way this would be solved is with like these Aikido cards, is what they are usually called. Cards like, and you have some of them in here, like Deflecting Palm, where you can basically, you goad all of the stuff, and then when the last hit that would kill you comes, you send it back at your opponent and you get him that way. But you found that wasn't reliable enough, I take it?
I originally, when I built this, I didn't know about those cards.
Oh,
so
okay.
For the longest time, I was like, what am I supposed to do? I was just hoping that the idea was like when they would goad, everything would be open because everything had to attack. And then I would attack them and slowly beat them with Baloth. And he's at like 10 or so power, right? And I've played around with this deck with the Raised by Giants background, which is where immediately he's a 10-10. So that means 2 boom booms and you're basically dead. And that's in green. And I didn't like it as much. I think it's very like mana intensive and stuff like that. Already a hard time getting your commander out and everything. Noble Heritage at least was like everyone's having a little bit more fun with it. And so, yeah, when I started to like put this list back together, I was like, all right, yeah, let's have Deflecting Palm. Let's have Comeuppance. Let's have stuff that what is it? Boros Reckoner. Like some of those cool cards. Because originally I think Brash Taunter was my most reliable win condition for the longest time because he would fight whatever their big thing was. So I would have him as a blocker. They would swing it at me. He would block it, take all that damage, and then I would tap him and have him fight the thing that's still coming at him or whatever the biggest thing was to really try and do as much damage to my opponents. And that worked a little bit. But it was always super fun because, again, it's that notoriety where they'd be like, all right, he's playing the Baloth. Where's the Brash Taunter? Because eventually it became like synonymous with like Baloth, he's not long for this world. Brash Taunter usually is the last man standing on the battlefield because he's like, no board wipes can get rid of me. I'm indestructible. So yeah, I loved him. Every once in a while I'd have a blasphemous act hit for like 13, and you love to see that.
So how do you try to win the game now? Like, what is your plan now? Like, okay, so we've knocked out 2 players. We're 1-on-1. Yeah. If I goad the last guy, he hits me. So what is the plan?
Yeah, so usually the plan would be, I've sort of refined it a little bit, hopefully, so it's a little bit more reliable. So Baloth hopefully has been hitting at least a couple times to each player because I don't like to. It's usually he goes at whoever didn't take the deal. And that's one of the fun ones. Is like, all right, you didn't take the deal.
Those people.
He's coming at you.
Terrorist is what you are. It's just like,
how could you? It's my noble heritage. You don't, got to respect my noble like bloodline, dude. Don't want to take the deal? That's fine. I'm coming at you. So that's usually the fun thing. Is another extra unspoken incentive is take the deal or else I'm coming at you. And so I am a man of my word. So if everybody takes the deal, Baloth does not attack. So that is, I'm sort of shooting myself in the foot. With that, but I'm a man of my word. I'm like, hey, if I'm protected against you, you should be protected against me. It's only fair.
That is fair, yeah.
And so it's very much like that's playing with one hand behind your back, but it made for way. It's just so much more fun, in my opinion. So we've got the aforementioned the sneaky land or whatever it is, the escape tunnel or the rogue's passage and stuff. And I've got a couple of those I think that are actually not that good. Because they're power. The Rogue's Passage is the best one because target can't be blocked, so Baloth can get in. I recently thought that I think Sunforger is probably one of the best cards in this deck, just because it makes Baloth like 4 stronger, which is crazy because he's very power reliant. Toughness doesn't matter because he just wants to goad, and then you can go and unattach it and go search for your Deflecting Palm or your Comeuppance to help you win. I do think that thankfully, I built this deck way before the Murders of Karlov Manor set came out, but it did release a goad deck, which is very similar style with Nelly Borka as the commander, and they released a very cool card, which is Take the Bait, or maybe there's another one. What is it? There's a card in there that's like, maybe I didn't add it to this deck, but I think something like Take the Bait is really fun.
I'm pretty sure Take the Bait is the one from
I think
that deck.
Yeah. Where you prevent all combat damage that will be dealt to you, and then maybe it's not Take the Bait. There was one where it's like if everyone's goaded against you, you like actually they stop being goaded. I don't remember what it's called. I should have added it to his deck. I thought I put in the right one, but anyway, there's a bunch of cool stuff. There's a lot of cool ones. So I put in more of the cards like, let me see.
What does the card do? Let's figure this out really quick. Come on.
Yeah. Okay, so Take the Bait is basically someone attacks you, and then you basically like untap all of them, and then they have to attack somebody else instead. So you're like, all right, you were going to attack me? No, actually, you have to attack everybody else. So this is good because I feel like some people would have naturally bigger creatures than Baloth just when they would come down. Like I had a friend Dragon's deck and stuff like that. So their things were usually always bigger than Baloth. And so they would attack me and not take the deal. And so Take the Bait is a good one to be like, no. Make those dragons fight my opponents. Get them out of here. And so I take no damage from the dragons, and then those dragons are goaded and have to go and attack. And it's usually pretty nice because Baloth is like, hey, if they attack or die, attacking or blocking creature, if they die, I make money off of it.
What's the card you were talking about before? Like Spectacular Showdown by any chance? The one that puts double strike counters on things.
That one is no. There's one in the hand.
No, I was just wondering what you're thinking of. You know, I'm just
I could have sworn
really
there was
interested.
one. Yeah. Now I'm like tripping. Hang on, let me go find that. Let me go find the precon. Let me see. Hang on.
Because
I mean, Spectacular Showdown is a banger. I do love Spectacular Showdown.
It's a very fun card. Yeah, I'm surprised it's not in here. It feels like your type of thing.
I think I had it, and then I remember because the scary thing is you put those double strike counters on, and if you don't win, you lose so much faster to the double strike.
So it's still there. Yeah, I mean, the Nelly Borka deck was really, I think, a great like access point to a lot of these cards because it had a lot of those things in there. Oh, you found it?
I remember it now. Okay. It's not in my enchantments, but I thought I put it in. It is Hot Pursuit. So basically, Hot Pursuit, you suspect a target creature, yada yada. As long as it's on the battlefield, that creature is goaded. But at the beginning of combat on your turn, if 2 or more players have lost the game, gain control of all goaded and or suspected creatures until end of turn, untap them. They gain haste until end of turn. That's the card I was thinking of. That card should be in this deck. I totally forgot to add it. But that's the card that, like, if you're in the 1v1 and everything is goaded coming at you, you get them all and then you hit them. And then hopefully they die. So it's another one of those like deflecting palm, like karma cards. That's the one I was thinking of for the murders card. I definitely...
All right. So like, I feel like, okay, I've been asking this question in a bit of a roundabout way, but I'm just going to be a bit more direct now. Like, I feel like, and this is maybe just my perception of it, but I feel like this deck has a Voltron component. You have Commander's Plate in there. You've got these like cards like Silver Shroud Costume, not Shiny Impetus, sorry. What was it called? The All That Glitters. That's what I was thinking. So you have a bunch of those cards that like clearly serve to buff up Bailoff, so he goads everything, but also buff him to a point where like it's kind of an excess, right? Where like is the plan not then to just smack people to kill them?
Yeah, 100% is.
Oh,
usually it is definitely to smack people. The Voltron is because usually he will get removed very quickly. Not like very quickly. Noble Heritage sort of like slowly. And so I realized, okay, building him up turn after turn is really fun. But when he gets removed and I have to recast him, starting back at like 1 power really feels bad. So thankfully I like sort of half meshed this with the a lot of the cool cards from like the Fallout set that had to do with like the equipment. So we've got like, I think like, where is he? There's the Knight, I think, that gives all my equip cost 0. Pure Steel Paladin. There he is. So I can like instantly equip everything back onto Bailoff to make him really strong. And like you talked about Silver Shroud Costume. I think that's one of like the best cards because it's not only like an equipment, but it gives him Shroud that turn when he comes down. So like he's basically a protection spell and it means he can't be blocked. So it's like a double whammy where now he can't be blocked and I evaded whatever your Swords to Plowshares was and I live a little bit longer.
I think it's really interesting that like you seem so worried about your commander getting removed a lot. And I feel like if I played against this deck for the first time, I would be kind of fine with you having your commander. I wouldn't be stressing so much about it. But I guess this must be because you have such a like well-developed internal meta game that you and your friends, you have like a very keen eye on the decks and the cards you've seen multiple times.
Yeah. It's also like most of the time when you go to combat, right? And you're maybe like, this is the first time you played against this deck. You go to combat and I have to sort of like from behind my hands be like, they have to fight, by the way. That guy has to fight, by the way. Oh, that guy, he has to fight, by the way. He does have to go to combat. And then usually you do that enough and they'll be like, okay, what the fuck is making me, what is making me do that? What is part of my language? What is making me fight right now? And you have to be like, him, the Bailoff is making you fight. And they're like, all right, I don't like that. Remove him. Get him out of here. I don't like, you're messing with my plan too much. And so that's at least sort of what I've experienced. And that's sort of like that gets sped up the more you play against it. We're like, all right, Bailoff is getting stronger and I don't like it. The good thing is usually for the most part, because of Noble Heritage, there is a little bit more things you can do about it to make it like, he's not as big of a problem. Bailoff is not a big problem because I'm growing stronger. So I don't have to worry about it. I'm still keeping my blocker back or my big value creature back. Which is why I think it suffered a lot more when I played it with Raised by Giants, because now they're like, oh, him? He's always goading me. I can't do anything about it. destroy him. And then you're like, now I have to pay like 7 to get him back. Ugh. And green is okay, but that's neither here nor there. So yeah, I think Bailoff, that's why I run a lot of protection, because people just incidentally board wipe all the time.
Yeah.
And having a little bit of like indestructible on there or ways to keep them around really, really does help.
Yeah, I mean, you play a ton of protection. Like you have Lawrence Escape, Gideon's Sacrifice. You've got a Blacksmith skill. There's just
it's never enough. Listen, it's never enough because it's never enough because I think the problem that my problem with red white is like draw. I think card draw is like one of the hardest things that this deck suffers from. Which is why I tried to put in a little bit more effects that help. Like I think the Pure Steel Paladin really helps with like the equipment stuff.
Yeah.
And like Codsworth and all these other different cards that like Esper Sentinel I think is probably one of the bigger like upgrades for the deck, where just like he's 1 mana, but over the course of the game, I mean I could give him equipment if I wanted to make sure I get those draws off.
I mean, I don't think you need to explain to anyone why Esper Sentinel is a good card.
Yeah. And it's just to like squeeze a little bit of card draw out, because Bailoff does make those treasures. And so even if it's like 1 or 2 treasures per turn rotation or whatnot, they do help, but they don't, if they were clues or something like that, it would help a lot more, which is why I think Nelly Borka is also really solid, because now when people hit each other, me and their controller draw cards. So like that helps keep my hand full for the most part. Cause you're burning through these protection spells. Every turn, someone will be like, I've got my board wide, boom. And you're like, no, please, indestructible. Or like, please let me keep him alive a little bit.
So you said earlier that the treasures don't trigger that often. Does that mean that usually people are just smacking each other and then just going like, well, I'm not blocking that. All right, I'm just going to take the damage. So
for the most,
So that's what you mean by like the games end quickly, because you're like, people are just, they're not blocking. They're not really taking those. They don't want to sacrifice the creatures, I suppose.
Yeah. It just feels bad. Like, I think for them, the part where it feels like control is like, I sort of have to play a creature, and then the person right before me, before I can even swing my creature, they're going to swing at me with their big thing that they just made on their turn or that they've had. And then I have to sort of sacrifice my blocker, my combo piece, because that's all I have. Otherwise, I'm taking 7 damage. And so it feels like I have to burn mana on my turn to prevent damage coming later that I know is coming, because everything is goated. And so like the treasures trigger infrequently. I feel like it depends on what deck you're playing. So if it's like everybody has one big thing, they'll all swing and take the damage. If people have tokens and stuff, they will block the tokens. They'll do nothing, like 1/1s or like scoot swarms or whatever. And so then I'll make some treasure off of that. And that doesn't feel good either for me to whisper like, now that they're dead, I make a treasure, by the way. I know that you really like that guy and I made him attack, but I do get paid for that. Thank you. And so that's why like I wanted mana doesn't become an issue until like really early in the game. Ramping to Bailoff is like the hardest thing you're trying to do, is like just get to Bailoff. Sorry, I punched my microphone. Just get to Bailoff. And then from there you're usually chilling, because Noble Heritage you can drop like turn 2.
Yeah.
And then you're trying to get Bailoff by like turn 3 or 4.
And I mean,
ideally,
nice thing about the Noble Heritage is that it does give you an ETB, right? So like as soon as Bailoff comes in, then he gets counters, you get started right away.
Yeah, which is really nice. Thankfully, like, if it was on your upkeep only, it would feel way worse. But yeah, the protection is really nice, especially like some of the indestructible ones, because I have a ton of fun with Pariah's Shield. I think this is such like a goofy card. This is a leftover from the green, the time he spent as a green boy. But Pariah's Shield is just so fun. I used to run this deck with Pariah's Shield and with like the asceticism, so I just regenerate him, so he would just take every damage for me. But this is still really fun, because usually by the time that I have like the 5 mana and then the 3 mana to equip him, Bailoff is maybe like at 8 or 9 power, right? And that means his toughness is like a little bit higher than that, so like 12 damage. So it means I can like chump and then take some damage, and not really take that damage, which is super cool.
So that's like,
and that helps me. Yeah.
So that's the plan. It's just to like literally, well, this guy's gonna absorb some of those hits for me.
Yeah. Pretty much. I guess Bailoff does it all. That's why he's so important. I'm like,
he does everything. Die. He's perfect.
Yeah.
I mean, you do also really have the Brash Taunter though, right? So like at least
that is.
Yeah.
Yes, that is one of the plans as well. I love him. Boros Reckoner, any of those. I tried to put in a couple more because I love those damage redirection effects. I think they're so cool.
Yeah. So a friend of mine has a card that he hates more than any other card in Magic. And it's not what you would expect. It's not a smothering type, not a Rhystic type, none of that. His most hated card is Humble Defector, which you also play here. And
doesn't like that.
And it's because, and here's always why he complains about it. It's because what happens with Humble Defector is it's a 2-mana creature where you can tap it to draw 2 cards and then you give it to an opponent, right? And then that opponent gives it back to you. So you just have 2 people passing it back and forth. Has that been your experience with that?
Absolutely not.
No?
Yeah. I would say that Humble Defector, for one, I love Humble Defector because for the most part, he's always goated. So they have to activate him or else they like lose him for the most part. And usually they're like incentivized to draw the cards. And so I feel that most of the time it never gets back to me. Most of the time they'll pass it back and forth between each other, which is probably not ideal. I probably should take this card out. I definitely should get it out of here. But it's again that like it's having the fun where I'm like, all right, I'm sort of bribing you guys to not be mad at me for making your stuff attack because you guys are passing the Humble Defector. Usually the conversations go a little something like, all right, I play my Humble Defector. Yeah. I'll tap him, draw 2. I'll give it to my buddy. Then my buddy will be like, all right, well, since you're making everything I own attack, I'm going to give the Humble Defector to the next guy instead of you because you're going to make my stuff attack.
You just never get it back.
And I never get it back. And it just is what it is.
It's like even worse. Yeah. That's really funny though.
My other fun one is Karn the Betrayer.
Yeah.
Because Karn does sort of what this deck wants to do. The only downside is people draw cards off of him. But I don't care because it's fun. Because he's another sort of like rogue in the battlefield. He's sort of fighting in the fog, where they might be all focused on the Bailoff goading and stuff, but Karn's got to attack every combat, so he's doing 5 damage slowly, or he's like hitting people and killing their 1/1s or whatever. He's whittling them down. And so my opponents love to see Karn come down because he's just so cool. A lot of my friends are into Warhammer, and so they're like, yeah, Warhammer, Karn.
So you all are a very Universes Beyond positive group then?
For the most part, yeah. I think there's a couple where I think I like shunned I had a buddy who was like, what if I get the Office one? I was like, no. If you get the Office one, that is is like where I might have to agree with the pig slop argument for the Office one.
I have something I need to say about the Office one. And it's just because like I don't know when else I'm going to get an opportunity to make this point. But one thing I find really funny about the Office Secret Lair is not that it's Dwight Schrute from The Office, but it's Dwight Schrute from The Office from the perspective of Dwight Schrute. All of the cards are how he sees himself. It's not how we see him. And these are cards how Dwight would have made them about himself. I'm sorry, that drives me kind of insane to a certain level. How has nobody pointed this out yet?
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's crazy. It's also like, for me, on the Secret Lair, like Office thing, I'm like, how are we getting people to like draw these ones when a lot of like the Final Fantasy ones are just like screenshots from the game? I'm not a big fan of like the screenshot Secret Lairs or like the screenshot like collector cards, or I'm like, okay. Or like, what is it? Some of the Spider-Man ones, which is a whole nother thing, but like I don't know. I feel like it's lazy. Or I'm like, oh, we're going to pay extra to have, these are like proxy. These look like someone just like, someone got their printer and printed out a arm.
I'm actually a huge fan of Avatar. I love Avatar. It's great. But with Avatar, they're also doing that, right? But they're basically just using screenshots from the show for the cards. And I'm like, I don't know. This doesn't look that good. I gotta be honest with y'all.
Yeah. I think the one that sticks out is like the redirect lightning, where I'm like, oh, that's just straight up the scene where he redirects the lightning. Yeah. We couldn't have like really cool art, because some of the art is like incredible for the Avatar stuff. And I'm like, we're really using our artists on Dwight right now to like draw him as this is what we're doing with our stuff. And,
well, I mean, the way Wizards work is that they don't really have internal artists, right? Like, my guess would be they have like a more of a team of art directors that then like contract in a lot of external artists. I mean,
Yeah.
that's just kind of like how you handle that large of an operation. Wizards is mostly an art studio anyway. They're an art studio that makes some playing cards.
Yeah,
Just-
pretty much. I mean, yeah, so much of their stuff is like all D&D and everything like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, none of the Office. But yeah, we're very pro Universe Beyond for the most part. Because again, it's like that fun sort of storytelling aspect.
Yeah.
Some background is all my friend group, my like play group, we all did improv. That was like our main hobby before we played Magic. And so a lot of like improv is all like storytelling and just having like goofing off and comedic stuff. So no one has like issues with seeing like what is it? I've got Cloud Midgard in Mercenary in here. No one's like, oh, what is he doing in my Magic game or whatnot? Or like, what are you doing with the Pit Boy 3000? You know, dude, it's cool. Trust me. Everyone just fight. It's cool. And so, yeah, that doesn't come up a ton.
I mean, like, I fully see it. Like, it's one of those things where at the end of the day, you play with the cards that you like, or you play with the cards where it just doesn't really bother you. But I'm glad to know that your line in the sand is the right truth. That's no, we're not going there.
That one really, like, I felt like it's not the perfect analogy, but everyone was like, when 9/11 happened, I remember where I was. I remember where I was when I saw like the first, like, Dwight Schrute is now a secret lair. And I remember just like sort of taking my glasses off and just being like, no, we've really gone too far with this. This is like Jaws. I was like, okay, they made Jaws cool. They gave him like cool art and stuff. I'm like, oh, that's kind of fun.
Oh my god,
that's not all that different. That's a classic movie. But
all right, okay, but I'm glad that we've pulled that comparison as well. So I want to kind of like actually circle this all around a little bit to your YouTube channel, because like what you make on your YouTube channel is you make these like really out there decks. Let's put them that way. I mean, I think the big
answer.
one that really, I'm sorry, I'm not entirely sure if this was the one that like really exploded or not, but the one that I first saw with like a ton of views and got a lot of attention was the drunk driving deck.
Yeah, that's actually
No, go ahead.
Yeah, that's the one I think that like the first one that blew up was I did a deck that was all like 1 mana spell. So everything mana curve was just 1 for the most part. But I think the one that has become more synonymous with like the vibe of the channel is for sure like the drunk driving. Like I had someone at a convention come up with the commander, Captain Rex Nebula, and be like, "Can you sign this?" And I was like, "I made it. I did it. What the?" Some people have like, you know, their classic cards that their channel is named after, but I'm like, oh, I with my own 2 hands. So yeah, it's definitely like very much goofy and weird. I sort of describe it as like I try and do comedy disguised as Magic content is kind of the easiest way to describe it.
Well, I feel like that's just what it is. Well, it's not. I wouldn't even say it's disguised. You make comedic Magic content, right? Like I think that's absolutely valid. But the interesting thing to me is, do you ever play any of those decks? Like, is that even a consideration?
Yes, I do. I have gotten better at considering that people actually play them. I don't personally play very many, if any of these decks. I think I've built them and I've tested them on like Moxfield to see if like they draw the right amount of lands and they are playable. But a lot of the times I do feel sort of like, hey, build this, but maybe don't actually. This is just more of like a thought experiment. Like actually be very careful. So most of the comments I see are like, I took this as inspiration and I tweaked it and built it how I wanted, and it's really fun. And the theme usually shines through. Like you can upgrade a lot of the decks, and like the theme, the cohesive of like the idea will still be there. And I've tried a little bit more. Like I did a deck that had like no lands in it, I think, or like it was only land or something like that. Or like no, it was like a 10 mana deck where everything was like 10 mana or more, like the opposite of the 1 mana thing. Yeah. And so for that, I was like, all right, I gotta hit the land drops to make sure this deck you can play it before the game is over. Because it's no fun if you have all 10 mana cards, but you can't do a goddamn thing. So I remember testing that for maybe like a good like hour before I was like, all right, I now feel okay to push this into the sphere. But no, I personally don't play any of my decks. I don't like build them on paper or anything like that. I do build things that I would be down to play. So if someone handed me like, hey, I printed this all out.
Yeah.
Would you play it? I'd be like, yeah, 100%. Some of them, it depends on like what the comment is, because usually sometimes I build it off of the viewer suggestion. So sometimes they suggest things that are outside of my usual wheelhouse of play styles. So like control, or more like anything that's like Azorius or like stealing and no one gets to have fun. I'll build them and make a video about it and try and be like, hey, don't actually do this ever to anybody. This is more of like a thought experiment. And so it's interesting to sort of see what the possibilities are.
Yeah.
A lot of the time I find a lot of old cards that no one talks about at all, which I feel like is the theme, like the OG origin of Commander is like, hey, these cards don't fit in Standard or any of the other formats. Let's put them in Commander and we can play them now. And that's sort of how I feel, where I'm like, I'm rediscovering cards that no one's talked about. There's like somebody's shack or some like, what is it? There's like a abandoned store or something, a storefront where you're like, what does this card do? Or like Monkey Cage or all these weird, goofy, like Dovescape, all these like stupid cards that don't exist in like the Magic discussion, to bring them up and be like, hey, look at this goofy card. Let me make a joke about it. And then,
But do you feel that your, like this very thematic deck building, like this probably extends into your actual deck building as well, right? Like, I mean, looking at the deck that you've brought here today, this is a deck that's like very much about this one idea. We're gonna interact by actually playing maximum Magic, by goading, by fighting constantly. We're on the board, right? Is this, and I assume this kind of like perspective of wanting your theme, your through line to be like very prominent, that stretches through a lot of your deck building, I would guess.
Yeah, it's one of those things where like I don't think about it until someone says it. So like that really did be like, wait a second, I do that. Usually it's not as like silly as like, all right, this is a drunk driving deck.
Yeah.
But I find aspects of different commanders or cards that I'm like, I really like this idea. And I'm going to build more into the sort of like more niche styles of building the commander. Another example, I have a Judith Carnage Connoisseur. So she basically is like, spells have Death Touch and Lifelink. So most people would just build that as like, I'm going to board wipe every single...
Yeah,
like,
I'm going to cast Blasphemous Act and have 600 life.
Exactly. And so they build it in like that sort of like board wipey just like way. I really like the idea of like making imps that do damage to everybody and then using those as sacrifice fodder for more spells that draw cards off of things being sacrificed. So like Village Rites or stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I'd be like, I make an imp, I sacrifice him, I make another imp, and then I sacrifice him, I draw cards. And it's like a very like Rakdos spell slingery thing, but not as many board wipes. Still have the Blasphemous Act, obviously, but it's very much like, no, trust me, it's not that evil, Judith. It's like everyone is pinging down for the imps are killing everybody slowly. And that deck is fun. Hasn't won yet, but it's fun and it has the potential. It has the potential to win.
It's just gotta keep going, gotta keep playing, right? You'll get there.
Yeah,
eventually.
exactly.
But I mean, winning isn't that huge of a priority for you, it seems. Like, and I don't mean that to be like in a disrespectful way. Like, it's just like you.
I like to do the thing. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, you're here to play Magic, and playing Magic doesn't necessarily mean winning. It means playing Magic.
Exactly. I have there's a Duskmorn precon called Jump Scare, which I think is such a cool. I have it, and it's my Simic deck that has like a reputation because it takes forever to actually like play it out and win, because most of it is just like, I have this thing. What could it be? That I flip up and it's an Omniscience, and then I play everything from my hand. And it's like very much, I like to have like tricksy moments where I'm like, haha, I've calculated this move, which feels weird because I don't like playing like blue counter spells. I like playing blue other thing spells, like instant spell, like Portal Mage or like I
assume you like interacting at instant speed, or like not necessarily interacting, more like acting at instant speed, right? That's similar to the goat stuff here, where you're sitting there, you're pointing out, well, that has to attack, that has to, you have to pay attention. I mean, that works with flash creatures too, for example, right?
Yeah. It's one of those things where like, I like to not like interact. Yeah, it's very much like I like to act and be like, some of my favorite things are, I have a deck or something like that where I can buff things at instant speed. So sometimes it'll be, I've always, the commander that I would want to build this around would be Rex or a Howler, Captain Howler. He's a shark. And when you discard or like cycle a card, I think, you can make something bigger, and when it hits, it does damage. And so I'm always like, yes, I would never use this on my own creatures. I would only ever use this on my opponent's stuff, because that is so fun to me. Where I'm like, huzzah, you didn't block my buddy's thing. Now it's 10 power. Combat tricks, I think, are so like such an integral part of what I like about Magic. Of like, maybe I don't have to buff my stuff. I can buff other people's things and use them against my other opponents. Sort of like utilizing everything that I have access to, which includes my opponents kind of play style.
It's really fun to like hear of somebody in like a play group where it's really more about the kind of like relaxed, casual nature of Commander, right? Like that's what you all are really about, and I think that's good. I feel like a lot of online discussion is very much focused on the more like competitive mindset, and that's not necessarily, I feel like, what everybody's looking for.
Yeah. And I think it's very, like, on the competitive side of things, I'm, like, super out of it. Like, I barely figured out how, like, the demonic consultation and Thassa's Oracle thing works. I'm like, oh, I see what you do now.
Whatever.
How is that fun, though? Like, I was like, oh, I get it. You play, like, 2 cards and then you win. Yeah. But does that win feel earned? Like, you did... that win is something that, like, I could give to anybody to do and be like, all right, you play this card and you play this card, and then you win. That's very, like, it takes the spirit of it out, in my opinion, where it's like, okay, Commander's, at least in my head, is like this, has always been this casual format. Everyone just sort of playing around and goofing. Like, you remove my thing, I feel bad about it. I hold it against you and I remove your thing. Or whatever, like, not the most optimal choices. Yeah, I think competitive is very much like, it's its own beast. And a lot of its problems, I feel like they have invented themselves, where it's like, oh, everyone is so competitive, it's so salty, so I have to be better, I have to, like, win more against the other people. I don't know. It's very much like a murky kind of thing.
This is something I just find interesting as a content creator, but do you get people leaving comments on your videos that complain about the decks not being strong?
Not really. So what started my, like, I'm maybe going to test my decks more a little bit, so I have a bad habit of lurking in other content creators, like channels and Discords and stuff, just to see if anyone's talking about me. It's very much like an ego thing. It's not healthy.
Oh,
I mean, but I was lurking.
I think it's not that unusual either. Like, I have definitely been guilty of that. Like, oh, somebody mentioned my name on Reddit. Let's see what's going on over there.
It's very much like the dark side of, like, oh, it feels that they're talking about me. Yes. But then I read the story goes, I read a comment on Elk's Discord where someone mentioned my channel. They're like, oh yeah, Quips&Guac, that bracket 1 warrior. Like, they said it in, like, parentheses, like, derogatory, basically.
Yeah.
And everyone, like, sort of dogpiled and was like, yeah, his decks just suck or whatever. And I was like, okay, valid, they do, in the sense of, like, they're not supposed to be winning all the time. And if your goal is to win, maybe it's interesting where you're like, I want to win, but I also want to have a heavy theme. And so to me, I'm always like, I'm going to put the theme and the narrative over the winning, because you can still have, like, I always call it, like, the moral victory, where you did the thing your deck wanted to do.
Yeah.
And you subjected your friends to this weird deck. And so you won regardless of whether or not you really win the game.
That's such a fun way of putting it. You subjected your friends to this weird deck, so you won.
Exactly. That's the thing where, like...
But I mean, like, honestly, I think, and I'm happy to say that you are the bracket 1 warrior in a non-derogatory way. I think, but I think that's cool as hell. Like, that's sick. I mean, who else is making bracket 1 decks like that? Yeah. Nothing wrong with that.
I definitely think that because I have built my brand, so to speak, on, like, hey, weird idea, weird thing. A lot of the times, most of the comments are not like, this deck doesn't play against my buddy's Ur-Dragon very well. I'm like, yeah, that's not what it's supposed to do. I sort of, like, not like a selfish thing, but I do think that, like, hopefully everybody eventually watches my videos and realizes that we can come back to a commander that is more about having fun and community than needing to win every time. But that's very much like the Kumbaya Lorax ending, where, like, let it play, let it play. You know what I'm saying? And so I do sort of, like, put out the stuff that I would want people to play against me with, where I would, like, start laughing or be like, that is so stupid. Like, that is so good. This has made a very memorable moment for me. As opposed to, oh yeah, another Thassa's Oracle. You did a standing ovation. Because there's like, printing new cards every set. There's always going to be new things, and it's fun to see them.
For what it's worth, I think it's very healthy to have somebody like you around. Somebody who really like pushes into a different direction and is just willing to say, you know what, yeah, this is silly, but that's the point. And I like it that way. And that's great. So before we close this out right here, this is always my kind of final question to you. Is there like any last remaining synergy or card that we haven't talked about regarding your deck that you feel like, oh, I really want to tell people about this?
Yes. I realized it just now, but Reign of Riches is absolutely insane. I love Reign of Riches. Again, Baloth makes treasures, and Reign of Riches says, the first spell you cast each turn that mana from a treasure was spent to cast has Cascade. This spell is basically like extra draw, in my opinion, because most of the time we have incidental treasures here and there, and getting to cast things and Cascade down really helps the curve, in my opinion. And a lot of it will, most of the time, you'll hit one of your low-cost artifacts, or like your lower-cost creatures like the Sentinel or the Terramancer, or all these other different goofy guys that are in there. And so that way you'll be like, I'm card positive now. I'm getting better. It was one of those cards like I took out because I didn't like it, and then I put it back in when I realized that I did like it again. It's just such an interesting spell. A lot of people will be like, it's 5 mana.
Yeah.
But it's really not. It's only 3 mana because it gives you treasures.
Oh, I mean, I would argue it's actually a lot less mana than that across a couple of turns, right?
Yeah. And just people be like, it doesn't do the thing on the turn that you play it. I don't know. It's one of those things where like I listen to a lot of podcasts about Commander and stuff like that because I feel like I should be in the know about how to not, because I'm basically like, what do they all do? Okay, perfect. This is actually, I'm going to do the opposite because that's just how I roll. But so you hear like, if something is 5 mana, it should really shake up the game and change. Like, if you can't win with 5 to 7 mana, what are you doing? And to me, I'm like, oh, but it's so cool. You have a Cascade, and Cascade is just such a sick mechanic. I love all those like chaosy effects, or you don't know what's going to happen.
Bit of randomness.
It's one of those things where it's sort of my same issue with like tutors, like consistent tutors, where you're like, I'm going to tutor for the same thing every game. Versus I'm going to tutor for what I need in this moment. Really lead to like two different
I couldn't agree more with that. So like personally, I don't like playing tutors at all. Now, we'll set aside stuff like Cultivate, right? Like, okay, I tutor out a basic, whatever, right? But like I personally, I don't like playing tutors that fetch like cards out of my deck that are more impactful than that. Just because... Look, I wanna draw from the top and see what's going to happen, right? Like that's the whole fun of it. If I can just always, I found that if I play a tutor, and this is something I just can't really help myself, but if I'm tutoring, I'm finding the best option. And it turns out that more often than not, the best option is the same across many, many, many games. And then I'm always getting the same card, and I'm always getting the same experience. Why am I playing 100 cards then?
Yeah. You're like, if I win with the same 3 cards every game, then you're like, okay, then the rest of this is just fodder until I get to the cards. And that's sort of the CEDH thing of like, hey, I'm trying to win, as opposed to like, I'll tutor up if I could. I would tutor up like Brash Taunter every time because he's like my staple. I love him so much. Or like Pariah Shield or any of these like goofier, like not like 4-card combos, but just like cards that are cool and really fun. Like you can get the Brotherhood Regalia, which would actually be like a good card and to tutor for, because now it's got ward and it can't be blocked. And I'm like, that's good enough for me. But some other people might be like, all right, that's actually like one of the worst cards to tutor for. You should get the Sun Forger out immediately, so that way you can tutor for another thing and save yourself with like a Dawn's Truce instantly and all these other different things.
So I've been making a bit of an observation recently, which is something like I'm still learning about Magic, you know, and I something that I've noticed that I think is really interesting is that there are players that like cards specifically because they're powerful. They see a powerful card and then they think to themselves, that card is sick because it is powerful. And then I also think there are players that are kind of more on the other side of the spectrum, where they are looking for cards that when they look at them, they're like, oh, this is a piece of shit. But then if they can turn that into a playable card somehow, then that is more engaging to them. Like, where do you, I feel like you're more on the
Yeah, I'm definitely more into the turning the shit to gold kind of play style. I think it's just very much like a card will do something one time for me, and I'm like, you are the Messiah. This card, you are actually they're sleeping on you. They don't believe in you, brash taunter. I'm the only one who loves you for who you are, or stuff like that, or like humble defector. Don't let them speak dirty of you. You are my beloved. It's some of those cards where like they're really goofy and cool. I'm sorry, we're running.
Oh no, we can keep going. We can keep going.
Okay, perfect. Another one that I love in this deck is Agitator Ant. It's basically like another copy of your Noble Heritage.
Yeah.
At the beginning of your end step, each player may put 2/+1 counters on a creature they control, but goad each creature that had counters put on it this way. So you put it on your Baloth, he's goaded, but then your turn ends, so it doesn't matter. And then everybody else is like, do I get stronger again with the goaded thing? But now he's goaded anyway, so it doesn't matter, or whatnot. It's again, that's sort of like, I'm putting more politics. No one plays this card anyway. It's like 50 cents or maybe 15 cents. It's so low on the ground, but it's like a consistent goad mechanism. And I have an addiction to goad. I sprinkle a little bit into as many decks as I can, just because I think it's such like a better effect, in my opinion, than like removal, in the way that like I get to use it for my own benefit, which is better than removing it because then I get no benefit from it. And they also get no benefit, as opposed to now it's goaded. There's a card from Doctor Who, again, mentioning it. It's the Silence or something like that, where he goads something, he gets a little bit stronger, and then he phases out. So nobody can interact with him. It's just this consistent goad mechanism. He's nasty. All my friends hate him because he just shows up in a blue decker every once in a while. And they're like, we thought we escaped the goad. He's back. And I'm like, yeah, she's back. Here he is. Goad.
Just snuck into a different game somehow.
Just snuck it in. And it's like one little goad can change a lot as opposed to removing things, or because a lot of the times people will feel more okay. I made a video recently about theft and how I like more of the borrowing effects versus like the full give me that forever effects, because people are less inclined to be mad at you if you give them their thing back, as opposed to like, hey, can I borrow your like really juiced up Voltron commander for a second? I want to play with him and swing at somebody else. Which is where I think goad is very much like, hey, use that cool thing. Use the cards. You like paid for these cards. You built this deck. Use them.
You still get to play with them. You still get to just hit
not
somebody.
Removing yourself. I'm not saying
me.
It's very different from like control or like stacks, where it's like those stuff you paid for, they actually can't attack me unless you pay 2. Propaganda. No, that's like very much like the opposite style.
Every time I see a propaganda, you know what I do when I see a propaganda? I paid it too. That's what I do. Yeah. I just like, well, that's my turn now to just cruise right in.
I'm gonna hit you. I'm gonna keep hitting you. Yeah, and it's very much like it feels good. It feels so good. I love. There's a couple decks that I have that have enters tapped and attacking. They make like the tokens. I'm like, your propaganda does not work against those, and I love to remind them of that. I'm like, no, it doesn't actually. Feels so good.
All right. Well, thank you very much for coming on then. Like, it's been an absolute pleasure. I think it's great to also hear of another player who enjoys more of the like lower power level gaming of Commander. I mentioned earlier that one of my favorite decks is like a very high power deck, but that's actually like my only high power deck. Everything else is kind of this like bracket 2 trash, and I love it that way. I think that's where the real Commander decks plays as far as I'm concerned. Was great to have you on. Again, everybody check out Quips&Guac on YouTube. There's a link down in the description. And it was a delight. Well, that was a lot of fun. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to give it a thumbs up. I definitely appreciate that. Don't forget to support me on Patreon. There's a link down in the description. Lots of bonus content on there. And then also, let me know who you would like to see come on next. All right, I'll see you guys.